Let's talk about this function. Y equals mx plus b, or in this case it's been rearranged, but we're all pretty familiar with this function. Here we've got mx, where the m represents the slope of the function, and we have b, which represents the y-intercept. Here we can see how b directly correlates to where the function meets the y-axis. None of this is breaking any new ground, but since we're going to be talking about machine learning, I'm going to call b our bias. Lastly, we have y. Y is the output of our function, or the output of our model. So in this simple equation, we have two trainable parameters, our slope and our bias, and we use those along with our input vector x, which in this case is going to be a single scalar value, to produce a model output. So if we were to model this as a neural network, it would be very simple, but it would look something like this. If we move b up by a little bit, it's going to directly affect y by moving y up a little bit. And we can see that from our function. But the question then becomes, if we toggle one of these parameters, how is that going to move our output y? How can we know exactly what's going to do to y? B is pretty clear because it's a direct scalar value. So what we do to b is directly going to affect y. But m's a little bit different because m relies on x. What we can do, however, is derive the relationship between these variables and the output variable y. If we take the partial derivative with respect to both of these variables, we can see how these variables will affect our output. In order to gain that partial derivative, all that we have to do is isolate the variable that we're deriving from and treat all other variables as constants. Next, we can remove anything that's not in the term that we're deriving and apply the power rule. And then we just have to substitute back in any variables that remain. And here we can see the relationship between how our variables affect our output. In the case of b, it directly one-to-one affects our output, and that makes sense. Like we saw earlier, moving the b up and down should directly move our output up and down. Now, the m is a little bit less straightforward. The relationship between m and how it affects our output is x. But if we look at the equation at the top, that makes sense. The amount that we move m is multiplied by x in order to affect our output. And this makes sense if we think about it. Because if we have a graph here, and we were to want to move the bias up, it makes sense that this would move our function up directly. And we can also tell by looking at the slope how it makes sense that this m will directly correlate with our x. I understand this isn't anything new. We all learned this back in pre-algebra, but I think the implications of math are something a lot more interesting that take years to explain. So if we go back to our simple model, we can actually draw this in the form of practical operations that would have to be done in order to calculate y. If we're following the order of operations, m and x are going to be multiplied first, and it's the result of that that's going to be added to b in order to calculate y. So if we want to calculate the gradient for each variable, or another word for gradient is what a change in that variable will do to our output function, we can propagate backwards from y. So in the case of b, it becomes pretty clear. In addition to b, there's going to be the derivative of y with respect to b. So we derived that previously and we know that it's 1. Now the derivative of y with respect to this mx function is also 1. And that might seem a little bit strange at first, because you would think, being the fact that m and x have got that relationship, that there must be something more to it. But you have to remember that at this stage in the equation, we are only looking at the addition operator between the result of m times x and b. And if you increase the result of m times x plus 1, then you're going to increase your output by 1. So addition simply passes the gradient on to whatever it previously was. Now it's m and x where this gets a little bit more complicated. So if we want to find the local derivatives of m and x, it's not too hard. All that we have to do is take the derivative of mx with respect to each of these variables. So up top we can see the derivative of mx with respect to m equals x, and the derivative of mx with respect to x equals m. And still this is making sense. A small change in x should be reflected in the output proportionally to m, and likewise the other way. That isn't actually giving us a complete picture of what changing these variables would do to our output. But that's not actually the complete answer for what changing these parameters is going to do to our output function y. It only explains what it's going to do to the output of the function mx. If we want to find the derivative of y with respect to m, we have to apply the chain rule, which is the derivative of mx with respect to m multiplied by the derivative of y with respect to mx. This is likewise the same for the bottom, and those cancel out. And we already know those two values, so we can actually plug them in. In this case, we did actually have the correct solution just by taking the local derivative, because of the fact that the gradient for mx is equal to 1. But this is more so about showing the equation than it is about finding the actual answer. We would always have to apply the gradient from the previous step of operations in order to calculate our gradient. But to put that more generalized, at any point we can calculate the gradient. For the root node, it's the derivative of x2 with respect to x2, the gradient's always going to be 1. If we change our output by a small amount, it should proportionately change the output by that same amount. That makes sense. Next, when we're one layer away from our node, the gradient is just going to be the derivative with respect to that node, or the local derivative. So the derivative of x2 with respect to x1 is our gradient in that case. But lastly, once we get a little bit further away from the node, and in neural networks, this is the majority of the cases that we're going to be calculating, we need to figure out what is the derivative of x2 with respect to x0. In this case, it'd be pretty easy to figure out, but you have to imagine that when you're several layers deep in a neural network, it would be extremely painful to try to calculate this by hand. And so we need a generalized algorithm to be able to calculate this from the information that's locally available. In this case, we can find that we can get the gradient of x0 by multiplying the local derivative of x0 with respect to x1 by the gradient of x1. This follows the chain rule. If you've taken calculus, then this should make sense, as this is just the chain rule being applied, and the more layers back we go, all that we have to know is the gradient from one layer ahead. So say we had x sub z, and we wanted to calculate the gradient of that. We wouldn't need to go all the way through the calculation again. All that we would need is the derivative of x sub 0 with respect to x sub z, and multiply that by the gradient of x sub 0, because the information is already stored in that gradient, and we don't have to redo the calculation. So cool, but who cares? Well, let me explain. Here we have a model of what would be a neural network, and at the end here we have a loss function. This loss function can be thought of as, how bad is our model? And the reason that that starts to become powerful is because remember how we were calculating these gradients, and the gradients could be defined as little knobs that could change our output function. So if our output function is how bad is our model, and we now understand that these little knobs allow us to move that output function in a certain direction, or gradients, we can use these gradients to make this less bad. This model allows us to read in the data of a certain input and an expected output. It'll then spit out the output that it thinks is true, and then calculate how far it is from the expected output. Then, since it knows how to tweak its own parameters, it can move itself towards the correct answer and tweak each parameter in a way such that it'll get smarter with every optimization. This is, of course, a very limited and introductory view to backpropagation, but I hope that this was something that could at least be valuable to you and you found it interesting like I did. I'm certainly no expert in this. I've only just learned it recently and I wanted to share what I learned. If you did find this at all interesting, I highly suggest that you check out Andrej Karpathy's Introduction to Machine Learning and his Zero to Hero Machine Learning course. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.